everyone, and welcome to my show. I've got this new format which I'm just experimenting with, which is whereby I'm doing a number of short 9-10 minute videos a day, and also I've decided to do, when possible, one live feed. I don't know which one of these is going to get the most views. I don't really care, but what I'm doing now is trying to experiment, just trying to find out where I have the most reach. So join with me, settle back, relax, take it easy, go grab yourself a cup of coffee, take some time, because there's very little chance I'll say anything that's incredibly relevant while you're out making your coffee. So here it is. I've got a number of things. So the way I do it is across my Chrome browser, I put a whole lot of tabs, and in those tabs I have things which I want to talk about. And some of these things I've talked about in my shorter videos, and but I'm going to highlight some of them now, because often what I'll try to do is grab current topics and talk about those, give you my views on how I think and feel about them in general. And I will need from time to time just to check to see whether she's coming live, and she is. So the first one I'm going to talk about is, and I just want this to be kind of laid back, you know? Like, I don't have anybody else to talk to, because the reality is no one else wants to talk to me. However, if you do want to have a conversation with me about any of the things that I do talk about, then I want you to feel free to give me a buzz and to contact me on the email address below, and we can organise a time to have a chat. Happy to chat to anybody. Don't care what your views are necessarily, providing they're not extremely offensive and they're not denigrating others. Happy to hear what you have to say, providing they're rational and sensible. And I'd also like to think that you could subscribe to my channel so that I can get my numbers up in that area as well. So the first thing I want to talk about, though, is my friend Jacinta Price, because I posted a video earlier today about some of this stuff as well, but I think it's worth repeating the damage that some of these people are doing in relation to The Voice, and particularly their cause. And in this particular case, it's really about Senator Price choosing to be a jerk when it was probably unnecessary. She didn't need to do or say the things that she actually did say. And it indicates a lack of understanding to some extent around issues concerning children and the child protection system in general. A subject, by the way, which I have taken some considerable interest in over the last decade or so as the founder of the Child Protection Party. So, and also, I just need to say that my client work in terms of social worker is diminishing intentionally, and I plan to spend far more time doing videos such as this and working on YouTube and social media and talking about the things that matter, free of all the restraints or constraints that are placed upon me as a active social worker. Not that I'll say anything that I think would contradict my profession, but I might from time to time say things that may upset certain people in our community. And I guess if I'm not doing any counselling work, it doesn't matter so much. So that's where I'm at. Hence, as a result of all of that, you're going to wind up seeing and hearing far more of me if you subscribe to this particular channel. So in relation to Jacinta Price, I do want to highlight the fact that she does say things which basically are kind of nonsensical, but there's something she says here which actually I do agree with. I just want to point that out as well. Try to be as rational as I can, try to think outside my own personal bubble and think about things that she might have said. So she says in this, so this is Albanese responding to what she said about Indigenous children being in care. And he says, I saw Senator Price's interview yesterday. She was given the opportunity to come forward with some specifics and failed to do so. This is in relation to the accusations that children are being returned back into environments where there's pedophiles. And I need to, on this particular point, I need to say that from experience, I know this happens. And I know of parents who have complained. I know of foster parents who have complained that the children have been returned back to biological parents where they're at risk of harm. I'm completely aware of all of these arguments because I've heard them for years, and I'm not disputing that it doesn't happen. But when it happens in a child protection environment, my suggestion always has been, well, you need to make a report in South Australia, the Child Abuse Report Line, but certainly make a report to the appropriate authorities or the police about your concerns. And that's the appropriate thing to do. I would suggest that under every circumstance for that matter. But Jacinta doesn't seem to believe in that. And what Albanese tells her to do is basically do just what I suggested. I saw some interviews, get an opportunity to come forward. She didn't. Of course, if there is any abuse, then it's a crime and should be reported to police as a number of people, including Senator McCarthy and the Northern Territory government said themselves. Northern Territory Senator claimed child abuse victims were put back in communities that pose risk. Now, as I said earlier, and I didn't bring that up on the screen, so I apologise. As I said earlier, that happens. We know that it happens. It happens far too often, and something needs to be done in order for parents, foster parents, children, all to be heard. And I'm quite sure that there are a number of allegations that are made that are spurious, that are not necessarily based on fact, and that are about people finding ways to get even with a system that has either wronged them or with people in their lives whom they simply don't like. So I know that happens, and I know that it's an issue for departments and for police to work through some of that stuff so they're not locking up innocent people. But I also know that there are a number of kids who are placed in care where they are continually abused. And I've had a number of cases over the years where kids have been seriously harmed, sexual abuse that has gone on for many, many years within a particular foster family that I'm aware of. And the child has talked to others about this abuse and not been heard. So there's problems with the system all around, and this is what makes the system what it is, I guess, which is a system that ostensibly needs to be dismantled and changed. She says, I've been approached by many foster parents who are deeply concerned about the kinship rule when it comes to the foster care of vulnerable Indigenous children. Territory families like children who have been in loving, caring foster homes and then place them back into communities that they've actually not really known all their lives. And I just want to make a comment on that, because that's a real issue too, is that children often have been removed from their families and don't have strong connections with their biological parents and then get returned to them. Those instances where that happens are rare. Normally, children will make decisions about whether to be returned to their families themselves when they reach somewhere around 14 or 15 and they're tired of the child protection system and they just want to go back and live with their families. So that often happens, I agree, but there are very few cases where kids are actually returned back to their parents once they're under a guardianship of the minister. So how often she's heard that report, I don't know. Where did those facts come from for her? We do not know. Whether she advised those people to report this matter to the police, we do not know. And whether she herself has individually taken those cases, which as a government officer she is mandated to do, we also do not know. So the point is, do not make claims that you have trouble justifying, because you will be called out on them. I'm not saying the issues that she's raised are false. They aren't false at all. There are cases where kids returned back to harmful situations. But if you've got evidence to prove that this is the case, bring it forward and have the police deal with it. So The other issue I wanted to raise was with regard to Lydia Thorpe. And it seems to me that it is it is a shame that we're talking here about two Indigenous women who are parliamentary members and who are both acting badly. I think this is a bad look for Indigenous people in particular, particularly when they have had the opportunity to get elected to Parliament. But I do need to stress the fact that there are quite a few. There are up to 11 Indigenous people within Parliament at the moment, and all of them, with the exception of these two, behave extremely well. So I'm not trying to single out these two as Indigenous women who are acting badly specifically. I'm talking about them as individuals who are acting badly who happen to be Indigenous women. And I think that's a bit sad because I don't think they necessarily do their cause all that much good as well. So the issue with regard to Lydia Thorpe is that she went out on Saturday night, whenever it was. Apparently, seems like she went to a strip club, and when she was leaving the strip club, she was set upon by a few young blokes who clearly recognised who she was and gave her shit and treated her, I must say, from what I understand, badly. Now, if one is treated badly, yelled at, screamed at, insulted, and racially vilified, as I think was probably the case with her, the question we need to be asking is, how should I respond? Should I become angry back? Should I cause the situation to escalate? Or perhaps I should just choose to walk away? I'm suggesting that the latter item, or latter strategy, would have been a better strategy for her to have taken. But she chose not to. In this instance, she chose to argue back, to insult them as she was being insulted. Two wrongs do not make a right. And as a result of that, she got caught out on video and she embarrassed herself, absolutely embarrassed herself. And so what happened was, I'll just have to realign this a little bit, which I'll endeavour to do so that you can see it. So what she did was, she in this process has defended her behaviour. I don't know what she's doing at a strip club either. I don't know whether I necessarily agree with that sort of behaviour, but nevertheless, that's where she was. And she's, so this footage surfaced. Of course, if she's of note, people are, with cameras, with phones and cameras, they're going to record it. So she might have been intoxicated. Still, no excuse, I don't think, for bad behaviour. Definitely no excuse for bad behaviour. And she's yelling at them, telling them that they have small genitals. I don't know how she knew that they had small genitals. I don't specifically know how you define what is large and what is small. But clearly, she may have had some inside information around all of this, and that is yet to be disclosed. But nevertheless, she did identify those genitals as small. Now, we don't know whether she's talking about length of penis or other parts of the scrotum. So, nevertheless, this is what she had to say. She says that the former Greens turned independent Senator Thorpe claimed people were trying to drag me down, as she stated. Well, I guess that's fair enough. I mean, you are fair game. You do say and do some silly things. And she's, the other thing too about Thorpe that fascinates me is that she enjoys being, it seems to me, and I could be wrong here, but she does enjoy being a part of the media frenzy. She enjoys being in the media. She enjoys making a ruckus. She enjoys challenging other people. She challenged Posy Reynolds, which I thought Posy Reynolds needed to be challenged, but nevertheless, not in the way that she does it. She does it in a way which develops a presence, and certainly it gives her media coverage. Now, if she wants to go after media coverage then I think there are ways to do it that are probably more appropriate. But she always chooses some haphazard, go at it no matter what, say whatever you like, do whatever you like, go to wherever you like, behave however you like, and then eventually I will get some coverage from that. And she's very good at it, I must confess. She's 10 out of 10 for getting herself covered. Here she's done it again, and we're talking about it here, and the media's talking about it. It's sad. So this is what statement she made to Sky News, 7 News and Sky. It's sad people are utilising whatever they can to drag me down when we're trying to discuss important issues in this country. I need to make the point that that I don't necessarily think that being out at 3 o'clock in the morning at a strip club was really the place where she was discussing important issues in this country. I get the feeling that she wasn't standing in the middle of a strip club spouting her position with regard to The Voice and with regard to her concerns about Indigenous people. I don't think that was dominating the agenda at that particular time. But nevertheless, this is what she's saying she was. The video shows Senator of leaving Brunswick Club at about 3 a.m. while celebrating a friend's 50th birthday. She was shown shouting at man standing outside before being dragged away by a companion. You know what I say to you, you know what I say to you, she said. Small penis, small... sorry, we've sought clarification on the size of the article she was talking about. It was his penis, and clearly it was small. Again, we don't know how she knew this, but nevertheless, she seemed to have some inside information about the size of this man's penis, which is exciting. A man off camera can be heard calling Senator Thorpe a racist dog, inappropriate behaviour. No one's going to condone that. She then yelled at him, any black man that stands with the effing white little CT like that, yous can all get effed too. You've been repressed all our effing life in this country, and you let this little dog speak. The manager, well, let's be clear. She could have walked away. She could have chosen to have an intellectual conversation, which probably would have been a bit unrealistic given the past. My guess was that this other person was probably intoxicated as well. So two intoxicated people having a reasonable and intellectual conversation is probably unrealistic to start with. And clearly she didn't have the wherewithal, even when drunk. Well, she doesn't have the wherewithal when she's sober, but she certainly didn't have the wherewithal when she was drunk in order to leave this situation alone. She had to get involved, and as a result of that, she wound up behaving badly. David Ross, General Manager of Maxine's, told Daily Mail Australia that Senator Thorpe's behaviour was just unacceptable and she'd been banned for life from the establishment. Well, I guess that's no great loss. It's not the first time Senator Thorpe has been caught in controversy, and there's a whole list of times when she's been controversial. And the question that I guess we need to be asking ourselves is, why does she need to embed herself in such controversy? Heaven only knows. And then there was this other one I wanted to have a look at, which came out in about an hour ago in The Australian, which is changing topics just slightly, but that's what this show is about. Changing as many topics as I can as we go along so that all of us can be completely bored by anything that I have to say. Anyway, this time, so it's a first-of-its-kind study reveals vax long COVID link. And I thought this was interesting because I do experience a lot of sovereign citizens and freedom fighters and QAnon believers on my social network. Only because I find them entertaining. And, sometimes it's better than watching a TV show is to figure out what the crazies in this world are actually thinking. And in doing so, I've come to some varying conclusions about all of these people. They're not all crazy, but they are all delusional. One could argue that in itself makes them crazy, but who knows? But in this particular instance, this is an interesting report because it's only come out today. So new research from Queensland Health has revealed, I'll bring this up so you can see what I'm reading at the same time. New research from Queensland Health has revealed for those up to date on their COVID-19 vaccinations, long COVID symptoms may be no more severe than those experienced in the flu. I'll read on because it tells you exactly what all of this means. Long COVID symptoms are those that persist for more than 3 months and include breathlessness, cough, heart palpitations, headaches, and severe fatigue. I know that when my wife and I had COVID, we've only had it once, thank God. Certainly fatigue was a big deal, probably more than anything else. Just being tired all the time was a bit. Well, when you reach my age, one would expect it to be just fait accompli, really, but it's not. Like to be active, but when I had COVID, the sense of fatigue was distressing, to say the least. So Anastasia Palaszczuk, Health Minister Duff, said the research is the first of its kind. We know I don't know if you can read this. I just have to rechange this page a little bit as well. Just readjust this fractionally for you all. So we know our high vaccination rates protecting Queenslanders from the worst of COVID-19. It appears they also help suppress the severity of long COVID symptoms. So it's interesting that this happened in Queensland because clearly the rest of the country is not up to date. The rest of the country does know what's happening, and Queensland's ahead of the curve around COVID-19 stuff, apparently, even though they have a very low take-up of vaccination rates. Okay, we know our high vaccination rate produced Queensland for the first of COVID-19. It appears they also helped suppress the severity of long COVID symptoms. So, vaccinations, folks, apparently, according to this research, and, it's at this point that many people would say, particularly sovereign citizens and QAnon people, they'd say, do the research. So at this point, it's important that you go off and do the research. So don't rely on research that's been done by experts because they're probably lying and they have another agenda. Their agenda normally, according to these crazy people, is to harm us, to get rid of us, to eliminate us. And it's hard to imagine why people would want to do that. But apparently that's actually what's happening through chemtrails, vaccinations, and certain substances that are placed in our food. Apparently, according to the QAnon experts, they're all designed to kill us because they want to get rid of us and dominate us and take over and destroy us. But it turns out that people that actually know how to do research have a completely different perspective. The research involves studying adults diagnosed with COVID-19 and influenza during the concurrent waves of the illness that occurred in the middle of last year. It involved asking adults with the infectious disease about their ongoing symptoms and functional impairment through a questionnaire. They said that Queensland provided a textbook example of how to respond to a 1 in 100 pandemic. I don't know whether Queensland actually did have a textbook example, but they say that they did. The fact that long COVID symptoms now are on par with those of other seasonal virus illnesses in Queensland shows how critical vaccination is. So the argument is that if you're vaccinated, you're less likely to suffer severe consequences from COVID than if you're unvaccinated. The study is also a reminder the best way we can continue to protect ourselves is remaining up to date with vaccinations. And I tend to agree with that. Don't know what you think. Maybe you're a theorist and you've got a different version of the way things should be. Please let me know. I'd like to know what you're thinking in relation to any of that. Right, just bear with, don't want that. So I just want to switch paths a little bit and focus on what's happening in the United States. We won't talk too much about Trump because, frankly, I get bored about him. Most people, I think, understand that is a strange and weird individual, which seems to garner a lot of support from strange and weird individuals for reasons which I think are just strange and weird. But I want to talk about the number of deaths in the US as a result of killings, and may finish on this particular article, I think, because I'm, as an Australian, I fail to understand why it is that we would allow our population to run around with not just availability of guns, but carrying guns and being able to, by law, to carry guns wherever you might be. We had an incident back in '96 where there was a massacre at Port Arthur, and the guy that killed those 33 people was eventually locked up for life. And as a result of that, we banned guns. Wouldn't even know where to go and get a gun. Wouldn't even know how to buy one. Would never ever in this state pass a gun shop or a place that would sell guns. They're just not available. And it's rare for us to have gun violence. We had a poor paramedic in Sydney was stabbed the other day. He was stabbed. In America, he would have been shot. The reasons why he was stabbed, who knows? But the only people that carry guns in this country are people who are farmers, who use guns to, kill animals and pests and, dispense with sick animals of their own. But that's about as far as it goes, plus those that belong to a specific gun club. I mean, we have behind us here, about 100 metres away, there is a gun club, but we very rarely hear them firing. It's a quarry, and very rarely these days hear any action from them at all. But in America, 4 people killed and 28 injured in a shooting at a birthday party. And how in the hell this is allowed to happen, I will never know. Most of the victims, teenagers, from shooting a dance studio during 16th of February in Dadville. Okay. At least 4 people were killed, including a high school football player, in a shooting that erupted during a birthday party held inside a dance studio in the small town of Dadville, Alabama. State police and local news media said more than 28 people were injured. So the question is, what sort of gun did this dude have that was able to kill and injure that many people? During the shooting about 60 miles northwest of the capital of Montgomery. We're going to continue to work in a very methodical way throughout all of this, says their sergeant. What has our nation come to when children cannot attend a birthday party without fear? This is what President Joe Biden said. And it's so true. I mean, we might have varying views of Joe Biden and the way he conducts himself, but no truer statement has been said. He called rising gun violence in the US, he called it outrageous and unacceptable, and urged Congress to pass laws that would make firearms manufacturers more liable for gun violence, ban assault weapons and high-capacity ammunition magazines, and require safe storage of firearms and background checks of gun sales. None of that seems unreasonable. But somehow, in the United States, it's kind of a thing. I just wonder if you hold a gun, which I have done, incidentally, in a firing range, I hasten to add, many, many years ago. Did it make me feel powerful or strong? Not really. Did it make me want to go and kill somebody? Certainly not. Do I need to have a gun in order to feel safe and secure? No, I don't. Do I live in a high crime area? Well, just below me there is, just half a kilometre away, supposedly. It's a very low socioeconomic area below where I live. But do I feel afraid? No, I don't. Do I feel afraid walking through the streets? No, I don't. But would I? If I knew that there were people out there who were violent and that had guns in particular, would that cause me to feel more unsafe? Yeah, it probably would. And if I could, would I carry a gun under those circumstances? Maybe I would. But the question is, what makes it unsafe? The issue seems to me that it makes it unsafe because people are allowed to have guns. That's what makes it safe. So you can be driving down the road, for example, and meet somebody at a crossing who has an issue with you because you pulled in front of them, and they are just as likely to pull out a gun and shoot you than to sit down and have an argument with you and beat you up with their fists. So it's more likely in the United States, because everybody thinks that they have the right to carry a gun, that they're more likely to be violent using that gun than they are using other methods. So what is this all about at the end of the day? It's about a country, I think, that feels insecure about itself, that they basically don't like who they are. They detest people that wish to be different. They feel, particularly the Trump voters, feel disempowered. They feel resentful. They believe that their needs are not being met. And I guess if you're in a country where sometimes just being able to carry a gun makes you feel better, then that's the right you are going to fight for. Because if you take it away from those people, you kind of wonder what they're going to do to their self-esteem if they're solely dependent upon carrying a gun. One wonders. So I guess to some extent I can understand why you've created this situation and what it means to you. I just don't understand why you would allow the situation to persist. So if you'd like to argue with me, debate these issues, talk to me about the way that you think, any objections to anything that I've said, please contact me on my email address below, or make a comment below, and please subscribe to my channel and ring the bell for further notifications. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for being with me. Take care. Look after yourself. And, given what I've just said, more importantly, be safe.